Hold on, I'm getting to it. I got the mic. Now, my question is, do you realistically believe that the legal state of Israel will live peacefully side by side, and with America would allow that? And what does America and Israel, the state of Israel, have with Iraq? What are their roles with Iraq, and what role does Israel, the legal state of Israel, play in that?
Okay. Actually, I happen to think those are legitimate and important questions. On the first question, namely, can I actually conceive them living side by side, as you said, in an egalitarian fashion, mutual respect, and so forth? Right, excuse me? Okay. You know, there are two aspects. So I'll just speak now as an American, American in our own history. There was once a point when Martin Luther King was agitating sit-downs, sit-ins, civil disobedience, and somebody said to him, you know, you keep this up, you're going to alienate all these white people. And how do you expect to get along with them and live with them in peace when you're constantly creating all of this ruckus and creating all of this mayhem? And he replied that, he said, you'll never get white people to love you that way, it was said to him. And he replied that, first I want white people to stop lynching me, and then I'll worry about them loving me. And that seems to me, yeah, allow me just, that seems to me the right sequence. The first thing is to resolve this problem of the occupation, to restore the legal rights of the Palestinians, and to end Israel's illegalities, its gross violations, and criminal acts, many criminal acts, in the occupied territories. Once we've solved the legal question, then we move on to the question of love. And I think it's fair to say, you might want to disagree, but I think it's fair to say, okay, white people and black people in the United States don't love each other, but there have been, in a relatively short historical period, say 50 years, in terms of interpersonal relations, leaving aside the legal questions, there have been improvements in the United States. You have to acknowledge, however cynical you are about the Barack Obama impending presidency, and nobody is more cynical than I am on that score, it nonetheless has to be acknowledged that it's a tremendous testament and tribute to the American people. When you consider what the United States was like 50 years ago, that they could see it in themselves to vote for an African American as president. Things change. When Rodney King, after the LA riots, he famously said, "Why can't we all get along?" When I first heard that line, I thought, my God, talk about insipid lines. This is like Dorothy in Oz or Kansas. But then after I thought that was like really the right line. Can't we all get along? And I think the answer is, I retain the faith, I preserve the hope. We can all get along. But I agree with you. It's got to be get along on mutual respect, mutual honoring of each other's human dignity. Anything else, in my book, is unacceptable. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle to get the other side to recognize you, not just in a patronizing way, not just in a condescending way, and not just in the way of a liberal philanthropist, but as an equal who has something equally to contribute to this world. It's a struggle, but I think it's possible. And I think our own experience here should tell us it's possible. And I also agree with you, however, that if Israel continues to carry on as it does, a murdering and marauder state, which treats the Arabs like fish in a barrel, that goes on these expeditions periodically in places like Lebanon, and every time the Lebanese people build up their country after another onslaught from those vandals and marauders, Israel goes in again and levels the country. When you have pathological creatures like the current leaders of the State of Israel, who now refer to what they call the Dahiya concept. Dahiya refers to the part of Beirut, South Beirut, where it was in the last war completely leveled. It's a moonscape. That's where the Shia lived, the Hezbollah supporters. It was simply leveled. I was in Dahiya less than a year ago. And now these Israeli vandals and marauders, they talk about in the next war, they're going to turn all of Lebanon into Dahiya. No, you can't live with people like that. You can't coexist with people like that. These people need to be stopped dead in their tracks. But if they behave respectfully and they honor and respect their neighbors, I'm optimistic you can achieve a settlement. Yeah.
On the question of the one-state solution, I mean, as you eloquently bring out in your books, et cetera, exposing the state of Israel from the very beginning in its establishment of actually forcing hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, killing them and forcing them out of that their country. And you made a statement that the one-state solution has no international support. I guess what I would say is, I think the people of the world want to see the end of Israel, just as they want to see the end of U.S. occupation in Iraq, and many people want to see the end of the U.S. state. I would just want to say, I think international support, for example, in Vietnam and the struggle of the Vietnamese people, they got a lot of international support, especially when they actually defeated U.S. imperialism. And I do think if we look at the question of, you can't have any kind of commonality until you get rid of the state of Israel. Then to establish a democratic state.
Look, sir.
That's the question.
With all due respect, I doubt there's anyone in this room who's more sensitive to, cognizant of, and appalled by the crimes of the state of Israel. However, let's maintain our proportions. What Israel does in a year, the United States does in the world in an hour. And so if you want to eliminate states because of the murder, mayhem, and all the other horrors they inflict on the world, let's talk about the United States first. When you want to, when you agree with the destruction and elimination of the American entity, and after that's done, okay, we can move on to Israel. Until then, I think it's very presumptuous of Americans to talk about all the crimes that Israel commits. I mean, go to 9/10 of the world. They're not talking about the crimes of Zionism. They're talking about the crimes of the U.S. government. And yet I myself would say I'm not supporting the destruction of the United States. I wouldn't mind, if we take some of those leaders and do what happened to those folks in Nuremberg. That's why lampposts were created. But the destruction of the United States, forget it. You lost me. Good night.